So I understand there are no public questions being notified to the council in advance.
Okay.
And there have been no questions from councillors notified in advance.
Correct.
What I am going to do is, because of the number of people we have joining us online this evening, and we have a couple of residents here in the meeting, which I welcome you all to, we are going to bring forward the agenda item on the Old Palace Lodge to the start of the meeting. So agenda item 9 is the Old Palace Lodge. Paul, did you want to say anything? So this agenda item has been brought about as Councillor Gurney has a motion he wishes to put to the council. I will then follow with that motion. We will then debate both motions and discuss both motions at that point. Okay, so Councillor Gurney, if you could read your motion out, please, as it is in the report.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Motion 1.1. In light of the town's Motion 1.1. In light of the town centre hotel recently preventing any member of the general public from booking or casually using any of its rooms or other facilities for at least the next 6 months, please will this council contact all hotels and guest houses in Dunstable to ask they do not accept a block booking for all of their rooms for a period lasting more than 3 months, nor prevent the general public from using any of their facilities such as a bar, restaurant or meeting rooms. Just 1.1?
Thank you. Can you do 1.2 as well, please, Councillor Gurney, because that's the second part to yours.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 1.2. If hotels prevent the general public from using their facilities, it has a knock-on effect for all of the other businesses and trade in Dunstable, because visiting travellers, whether on business or to see friends or family who stay at hotels, often visit nearby restaurants, pubs, shops and sports facilities.
Thank you, Councillor Gurney. The second motion is from myself, and I propose that the council agree the following statement. Being located on the crossing of 2 main historic routes, Dunstable has a proud history of welcoming people from far and wide, and this council values all of its residents. We welcome all new residents and will encourage and support them to become active members of the community wherever possible. The council is committed to supporting all local businesses and developing a thriving high street. The council does hope that the Old Palace Lodge will be returned to its normal use once it's economically viable to do so. I now open the floor for conversation. Councillor Hollick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In this and other issues, I often feel that people shoot from the hip rather too quickly, either ignorant of the background of which they're posting, or failing to fully understand that background, latching onto some half-truth or complete falsehood, or generally just wanting to be negative about an issue. At this juncture, as far as the Old Palace Lodge is concerned, there are a number of unanswered questions. The public meeting that is going to be held later should provide some, if not all, of the answers being posed to the questions being posed. Tonight we are limited in our knowledge and also limited in what we can do. There are 2 separate problems which have become intertwined, that being obviously the financial situation of the Old Palace Lodge and the number of people who need to be accommodated having entered the country across the English Channel. I've looked carefully at both motions put forward tonight. One word has come to mind in relation to each of them. In relation to Councillor Gurney's, the one word is accusatory. That from Councillor Jones, constructive. Councillor Gurney has, along with his posting, which I believe was this morning, sought to question the owner's motives and consequently is in danger of seemingly making a judgment on his business acumen. People who have read that posting and may also be interested in what is said this evening in this chamber I feel it's entirely necessary to look at both that posting and tonight's motion to fully understand what is being said and what is not being said. Councillor Gurney asks questions based on certain financial details and appears to question the financial reality of the Old Palace Lodge owners' business interests. This without stating anything to do with the servicing of any loan, the current and future utilities costs facing the Old Palace Lodge, and the loss of certain business contracts following the effect of COVID and the way that businesses are now working, and the financial consequences that arise from that. So the motion makes reference to preventing any member of the general public from booking or casually using any of its rooms, etc., with no regard as to the background as to how this has come about. I note that Councillor Gurney seems to accept a block booking at other hotels and guest houses, so long as it's not for more than 3 months. In any event, guest houses are, as I understand it, not on the government's lists, they're having only a minimal number of rooms. I certainly do not disagree that there is a knock-on effect in the town. Councillor Jones's motion, as far as I'm concerned, reflects a certain reality and shows an understanding towards those coming into our community, as well as looking forward to the Old Palace Lodge reopening again once its financial situation is improved. And that latter appears to be linked with the arrival of that temporary new community. I will therefore abstain from Councillor Gurney's motion and support Councillor Jones's motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hollick. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak? Councillor Tamara?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think as we have many of our residents in this room and those online, I think it's prudent then to assess the knowledge and the understanding of the issues as it relates to Councillor Gurney's motion.
Sorry, Councillor Tamara, can you just hang on for 1 moment? Can members of the public please switch their cameras off, please? Please continue, Councillor Tamara.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, as the wider community of Dunstable consider the issue that we have in front of us and think about this motion, both Councillor Gurney's motion and the Mayor, Councillor Jones' motion, I think it's important to think about the viability of the motion and how it is that a councillor or an organization can dictate, number one, to any business what to do with their business. I think that's important to consider. And the fact that a councillor would consider somewhat prosecuting business in this town. I use the word prosecuting the business in this town because without understanding the full details, the reason why anybody in this room or any business in this town will make a decision whether or not to take block bookings or not. You've now decided, because of that decision that one business has made, you believe every other business, as a council, where we have no jurisdiction, should write to every business in this town or any hotels in this town and make it write to them and say they must not, the WASP must not take any booking And when you also consider Councillor Gurney's posting on Facebook, you really have to ask the question, is Councillor Gurney's brothers, are you trying to foster community cohesiveness as it relates to Dunstable? Or are you trying to tear us apart? Because we as a people, there will be changes. There are things that happen. The key word is this is a temporary situation. They called, because they're going to call a public meeting where they've not done a proper research as to the reason why a private business has made a private decision to work with a contractor or a government department, if you will. Madam Mayor, I think this council have no place or jurisdiction as it relates to what a private business does. And I so therefore ask that this motion should be voted down. As a matter of fact, I think the premise of the motion itself is wrong. The idea that you can say to a business that if you have a group of people that comes to your premises, that come to your organization to use your organization, a councillor is suggesting that we as a council should say to that business that they are allowed to make a business decision. I think it's a false premise, and that idea itself does not foster cohesiveness in our community, and I think it needs to be voted down. And Councillor Gurney, I want to say personally to you, I think when you look at your Facebook pages, you've put out business, record falsely, talking about the idea that this business has created equity in their business, but you've not talked in depth, looked at the other element of their business, which means you're falsely presenting information to the people of Dunstable.
Thank you, Councillor Tamara. You need to come through the chair, please. I've got other people on the list, Councillor Gurney first.
Madam Mayor, can I just say lastly, I'm going to turn this out, but Councillor Gurney, and honestly, based on everything that you've done, I think you need to step down from being a councillor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tamara. Councillor Corkhill.
Yeah, I've got a few comments to make. I've listened to a lot of debate about Dunstable. I went to the residents' meeting and listened to the concerns there. I understand the Old Palace Lodge was a private business, and private businesses must be able to make decisions, good or bad, that affect their business. What I am concerned about is the lack of communication on the decision made by people who are in a position to possibly inform Dunstable Town Council in a confidential manner that that decision was about to take place. And maybe we could have had a public consultation before the decision happened, although the decision rests with the business owners as to the feeling within the town and the effect that was going to have for the town. I don't understand why that couldn't have happened, and I think the retrospective public meeting is a bit late because the decision has been taken. I am concerned about the management of the Old Palace Lodge in the coming months and the effect that it's going to have on a town that we are trying to improve. But I understand we need to have compassion for the people or the residents that are going to be in the Old Palace Lodge. One other thing, although I'd like to see at the end of the contract the Old Palace Lodge restored to its former position as a hotel in the centre of Dunstable, I have a feeling a lot of residents won't accept that decision when it actually happens, but that is their choice. So lastly, my concern is about the communication of that type of decision, so we at least had some information and then a public meeting to discuss it might have been possible before the event.
Thank you, Councillor Corkhill. Councillor Kempson Gurney.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Firstly, I suppose I should defend myself. Mr. Tamara Councillor Martin, there was no public meeting called. Our meetings are held once a month for us to go out into the community, or anyone who wishes to come and tell us about their local problems. If you feel that's wrong, you should be stepping down. Secondly, this says, this text from John, do not defend him. It says ask. Why does this council not have a right to ask businesses questions? Why does this council not have a right to gather the information from the people and then make sensible decisions based on that? Why should this council not ask questions? It seems logical to me to ask questions, to find out how people feel, what the facts are, not simply jump to a conclusion and accuse the other side. Why make sides? This is not a side thing. At our meeting, a number of women clearly expressed their own personal fears. And given what we've had go on in the last, well, my lifetime, but specifically in the last 6 months, they've expressed their fears about 150 men gathered together in one place in the centre of Dunstable. Let's be clear, we have 2 hotels now largely occupied by asylum seekers. One is occupied by families, and that appears not to be a problem for people. But 150 men, who thinks gathering 150 young men under the age of 25 is going to make most women feel completely safe? Because I know 150 men, I know one man to be a terrifying thing for a woman. And I don't want Dunstable terrorised. I don't want people to feel terrorised. And it's not a question of whether or not they will do something, it's a question of how a woman feels walking around the streets of Dunstable. That was the feeling that worried me that was expressed at our meeting. As I say, they're held once a month. So, although I'm not necessarily going to support this motion, you shouldn't say we're demanding. No one's demanding, this says ask. And you shouldn't say I'm calling public meetings in response to what's happening. It's pre-arranged, it's all published, and you're all invited to every one of them. And I did have one other point to make, and that is the whole situation has got out of hand because in other cases, such as in the Northwest, the MP and the town council were told this was happening and publicised it, and arguments were put to the authorities for it not to go ahead. Now in this case, in a way, our MP Andrew Salus has been hung out to dry because we couldn't get behind him and support him. He was against this, but we weren't there to support him, so it's our fault for not being there. But we didn't know. If we don't know, we're independents. That doesn't mean we won't support the MP when he needs it. And this is really what's happened in this case. It was just dumped on people one Sunday evening. And that is really the wrong process. The right process is to say, we're thinking of using the Old Palace Lodge in this way. What is the local feeling? And then arguments can be made, representations made, and because people have had a chance to have an input, it will react less aggressively than the way they will to this point. Thank you very much, Madam. I'll sit down.
Thank you, Councillor Kegsingurney. Just to reiterate, for members of the public that are here, this opportunity this evening is for the councillors around the table to discuss and make comment. There isn't an open conversation for the public to participate. So those members that have got of the public that have their hands up wishing to speak, this isn't an opportunity to do so this evening. It is a council meeting for us to have that conversation as a set of councillors. Okay. Councillor Tamar, did you want to come back?
Madam Mayor, thank you for the opportunity again. I just wonder where my friend got the number of 150 men. Where did we get that data from? This is what the problem is, ladies and gentlemen. We cannot make assumption. Nobody knows. You are terrifying our residents for making comments like that.
To address me as the chair, please.
Chair.
You need to address me.
I do apologize. Chair, there is no such information So the question, Chair, that you need to ask Councillor again, where did you get that information? Is an assumption. When we make such an assumption, we scare our resident. We as councillors are supposed to reassure people, are supposed to reassure our resident about their safety. Yes, there are people, coming, but we actually don't know who these people are going to be, whether they're going to be families or they're going to be, we don't know. So why are we creating assumptions, Chair? And I think that needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Alan, I've got your name, but Councillor John Gurney is next.
That's fine.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the opportunity to reply. I would like to thank Councillor Caulfield for his comments. I agree with everything he said. I would like to thank my brother for everything he said. I agree with what he said. Now, let's talk about my motion. I agree. In my motion, it clearly says ask. It doesn't say about demand. It doesn't say about telling people this is what you should do. Ask. And I feel that really relates to the issue itself in Palace Lodge. Palace Lodge, I feel disappointed that they didn't come to the town council, or they didn't ask Central Beds Council for help. We may not have been able to come up with £3 million, but there may have been lots of other things we could have done to help them, but not to be asked. Now, and I feel that we should be saying to businesses, if you've got a problem, ask us for help. I think that's what we should be saying. In regards to the social media post that Councillor Holland mentioned this morning, if anybody reads it, it clearly says at the top, this is a snapshot. Now, a snapshot of finances that are published on Company's House really gives you just the basics. And it also says in there that if anyone who wants to drill down into the accounts may drill down into the accounts. So it's an opportunity there, because I've been asked by various people for a couple of weeks about all kinds of things, and I thought it's fair enough to put something on there and say, look, this is what I found out. You can look into this yourself if you want to. Regarding Councillor Tamara, you know very well that we've been holding public meetings even before we were elected. We've been holding these monthly. We held them during the pandemic online. We published them on a leaflet listing 6 dates since October. So this meeting that was held on the 25th of January was organised and booked in October. I sent out emails to all councillors, town council and central beds councils, inviting you to all those meetings. And then a week or so before each meeting, I sent you out another invite. So for you to say, do you think we organised that especially just for the Old Palace Lodge, is, I'm afraid, a lie. And I think, because you're lying, you should resign as a councillor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Gurney. Councillor Corporal, you wanted to come back?
Yeah, just trying to strike a balance. I just want to reiterate, I quite agree with some of the things Johnson said. I think fear, worry about how it's going to be dealt with, how it's going to be managed with the Old Palace Lodge, is the point of having a public meeting before the event took place, and that is the real crux of it. Both Andrew Sullivan and an executive member of the CBC both knew before it was going to happen, and there was no confidence in telling confidentially our town clerk of that situation and taking a decision. Whether the decision happened or not isn't the point. The point is we are now in a situation. Is it 150 men? Is it 140 men? Is it? We don't know, and it's a bit horses bolted, really, and that is the crux of the problem. And I think one other thing I'd like to say, part of the reason why I'm on the council and why most people on the council is because we're a partnership with Dunstable, with the businesses, with the streets, with everybody, with the residents. And that's the point. There's other businesses in the town suffering who may be given some help, but at least we could have a conversation so we know what's happening in our town with the people within the town and the businesses before it happens.
Thank you, Councillor Caulfield. Councillor Kenson Gurney.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'll try and be brief. The 150 came from a published number which was in today, reported to come from published figures from a statement from the old Palace Lodge Hotel. So I didn't make it up. More importantly, that was the number that was scaring the women. And I'm not really worried about how women get scared. I'm worried that they do get scared. I want to prevent that. I want to protect all of our people. And that's what those public meetings are about. They are doing what Alan said, going out, gleaning the information, trying to find out how people feel and finding the right balance, the right way forward that keeps everybody safe and everybody happy.
Councillor Brennan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For point and clarification, just as we all have phones, just reading through Councillor Gurney's post as it was like part of the conversation. Councillor Gurney does state in his post that, and I'll quote verbatim, what this snapshot does clearly show is that MGM Hotels Limited isn't heavily in debt. So that's verbatim as it says in the thing. It is factually incorrect information that is being provided to people of the town. If I can bring it back to the actual motion though, because that was the whole point in the first place. So, firstly, I agree with your motion, Madam Mayor. I think the main thing that stands out to me is that these are going to be residents of the town, like whether we like it or not. These people are coming to the town, and at the point when they come in here, they are residents because they're going to be residing within the town. And we need to make the people as comfortable as possible. What doesn't make people comfortable is rhetoric being spouted online. I'm sure many of you have read some of the comments as I have, some absolutely abhorrent language about people we don't know who they are, and they're called pedophiles and they're called criminals, and and in some way people are saying that they're scared to walk past the building because of who these people are. We don't know who these people are, and their country of origin in no way affects how dangerous it is to walk past a building. And anyone, I could go on for a while, but I don't think, personally, I don't support Councillor Gurney's motion because I believe, as Councillor Tamara said, the point is cohesion. We need to be welcoming these people into the town, and by going out to other places and saying, don't do this, we don't want people in the town, that's sending the wrong message for me. What we need to be doing is welcoming these people into the town and saying, welcome, you are residents. Thank you.
Councillor Crawley.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm reading Councillor Gurney's motion. I can see some interesting points to come out of it. I can't support this motion, but I feel the frustration that he and other residents and some of the council, I feel, would have in that such an active and involved with all the local businesses council. We weren't consulted, and it wasn't even brought to our attention this might have been happening, and that is a little frustrating. However, it is a private business, and decisions need to be made to save a prominent hotel and local community asset like the Old Palace Lodge. And if this short-term measure, hopefully short-term measure, manages to keep such a decent and well-used facility within our local community, in the long term, I think that we should try to support the Old Palace Lodge decision as much as we can, albeit with some kind of close watch and some support with the residents that are going to be moving into this accommodation. As for Councillor Jones's proposal, as for your proposal, Madam Mayor, I don't see the necessity for it, if I'm honest. But I think it is silly. Again, I completely understand where it's coming from. I think it's a good statement to make. Our country and our town are built on diversity. The amount of different shops and businesses across our town, Turkish barbers, Indian restaurants, Chinese restaurants, Thai massage. There is so much that migration has offered this town and can continue to do so. Inviting these migrants into our town can only, hopefully, help build on that diversity and build on the cultural acceptance that we already hold.
So I've got Councillor Hollick who wishes to come back. Is there right, Councillor Gurney, anybody else? And then we're going to draw them. Councillor Hollick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The snapshot, by its meaning, gives only a part of the story, and that is the danger. Which part of the story has been given? What is behind this decision? The true financial facts have not been given, and that is in part what has been led to this decision. Thank you.
Councillor John Gurney.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm sorry to say that there must be people in this on this council who don't understand the difference between being in debt and having debt. Now, all of us, many of us, have a mortgage, many of us have credit cards, and therefore we have debt. However, when you're in debt, it means that you can't afford to pay back the debt you have. Now, the Old Palace Lodge, for example, has assets, and those assets and the money it was making from income is higher, considerably higher, than its debt. Therefore, it has debts, it's not in debt. And therefore, my claim that it's not in debt is correct. 4 years ago, it borrowed against its existing property, the Old Palace Lodge. While it still had debts. If it was in debt, it wouldn't have been able to do that. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Johnson Tamara and Councillor Greg George, and I'm going to call it a day.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think the last thing I want to say on this matter is simply that we as a council and councillors have a duty, and our duty is to promote equality of opportunity. Our duty is to ensure that there's no unlawful discrimination against anybody. Under the Equality Act, we must make sure, as a council, as councillors, to abide by the law, to foster cohesiveness within our community, to ensure that we do not accept any sort of racial or gender or the non-protection under the Equality Act. We must, as an elected representative of this town, ensure that we look after the people that are coming in and the people that lives in Dunstable. It's our duty. We're carers. We are to foster good relationship within this town. Whoever comes in, whoever goes out. Our job is the most important job. Whatever we say, our people will take it very seriously. And so I'm asking everybody to be careful of what we say and what we do. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Tamara. Councillor George,
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just going to make a point.
could you put your microphone on,
Oh, yeah.
please?
I was just going to make the point, thank you, Madam Mayor, about the isolation of the issues here. This is always going to be a controversial issue, but I think we've got to be very careful not to muddle the national picture and the national feeling about immigration in general against the effect that this has had on our town. I agree with the point that Alan made that we probably, as a town council, in my mind, should have been consulted or at least informed about this issue, because then steps could have been taken and conversations could have been happened to mitigate any effects on the town. That hasn't happened, and now we are where we are. So that's one issue. The broader issue that, as Matt sort of referred to, if you like, about the national picture of immigration, how people feel about that. Everyone's got their own separate view on that, and that's a whole separate issue. And then we've got the issue that Councillor Gurney has raised about the effects that it has on the town itself and what we're now dealing with now, almost retrospectively, as Alan's pointed out. So I just wanted to make the case that there's clearly a lot of emotion around the table about this issue. It's very controversial, and I completely understand and empathise with all the points that have been made this evening. But I do feel now we just have to accept we are where we are with it. It's happened, and now we've got to move forward to the town council. Whether that motivates you to support Councillor Gurney's motion or not, that's personally up to you. I personally support your motion, Madam Mayor. I think it makes sense for us to address the issue. I think we need to be vocal, and our point needs to be heard. It's where we stand, our position on it, and I think it's well written. But as I say, I just wanted to make that point. That an issue like this, it's very, very easy for people to get emotional about how they feel about immigration, about how they feel about people coming into the town, whether they support that or not. We are where we are. We've got to move forward as a town council. We've got to find a constructive way to deal with the issue. And that maybe that's a conversation possibly for another day. But yeah, it's a controversial issue, and I understand residents and councillors and everybody around the table has got their own view on it. It's a very, very tricky situation, but I think we as a town council just need to be very, very careful that we don't enter into that mixing bowl of emotion and try and look at things as objectively as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there anybody else that had their hand up? I don't believe there is. Okay, so we're now going to consider then motion 1.1 and 1.2. Those in favour has the motion been seconded by Councillor Gurney? Proposed by Councillor Gurney. Has it been seconded?
I suppose I'll second it.
Is the motion carried? Those in favour?
1, 2,
Those against?
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Motion's carried.
No.
Sorry.
4 abstentions.
Sorry, any abstentions?
1.
Councillor, okay, thank you.
Motion's lost.
Lost. Yeah, motion's lost.
Motion's lost. My apologies. Okay, motion 2, 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3. Is the motion seconded?
I'm happy to second.
Those in favour?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Those against?
1,
Any abstentions?
1.
Thank you. The motion's carried. Okay, so that's the end of that agenda item. If members of the public wish to now leave the meeting, we will pause for a couple of minutes to allow them to do so. You are welcome to stay to